Alright, so a couple of months ago I posted a video detailing my history with what I consider a true classic in the knife world, and that would be the Ka-Bar USMC. I have had this knife going on 40 years. I have come to love it, trust it, and find it very, very effective, at least in my experience. Now, I've also done some videos recently on my reintroduction to another classic design that I love, trust, and find to be, yes, very effective for what it is, and that would be the Kukri. So here I am thinking, what would happen if I combined the two of them? Alright, this is the Ka-Bar Combat Kukri. Now there is a bigger version. If any of you have it, let me know what you think about it. I might wind up putting it on my wish list, depending on how this thing performs. And I haven't put it to any significant testing yet. I'll have a plan. I'll talk about that in a second. But first, let's consider specs on this knife. It has an 8.5-inch blade, so certainly longer than a traditional Ka-Bar, but shorter than a lot of Kukri. Blade thickness very similar to my original Ka-Bar at just a shave over 1/8 of an inch. Weight 13 ounces, so not terribly heavy. Point of balance, unlike a lot of other Kukris that tend to be more forward, we'll take a look at that in a second. It's basically right at the top of what would be the ricasso here, so just about maybe 3/4 of an inch ahead of the guard. So a little close to the hand, and that may affect what's going to happen next. It has a pretty nice semi-matte powder coating. As you can see from the cutting test, it came very, very sharp out of the box. This one has the rubber grip, which is common on a lot of the modern Ka-Bars. It has that kind of stick tang construction with the, you can see it on this side. There's a retaining pin through it, but it doesn't go all the way through the pommel. Don't know how far it actually goes in to retain the butt cap, but yeah, there's no real way to drive it out and disassemble the knife. So if that's a concern, keep that in mind. Everything's nice and tight. You'll also notice that the guard, unlike the classic Ka-Bar, doesn't really extend out the back, which I find nice because that allows me for utility use to potentially get my thumb way up on the back of the blade without that being in my way. Now, let's look at the sheath really quick. It's kind of a interesting concept. In order to allow the knife to be carried in any orientation, you'll notice it's got two little angles here. And what it is, it's nylon over basically a rectangular plastic well tube, for lack of a better word. So there's a plastic sheath underneath that that's rectangular in shape, and then you've got a pouch on the front for extra gear. On the back you've got some different kind of mounting options, and it comes with this loop hanger, which lets it hang kind of loose depending on how you want to secure it to yourself. I don't know if I'm terribly crazy about that, so I may look into some other mounting options. But you'll notice there's kind of a retaining strap, which will come in from either side. And the reason why that's there is because the knife will fit in either orientation. And you'll notice it kind of makes the scabbard look oversized on the top because there is room for the blade to be sticking in it either way. Now, it's a little rattly, but not super rattly because of that. But the biggest issue that I personally have, and you might share this, is there's no real retention. It's just sort of dropped in there. The only thing then that holds it secure is this one little strap retaining the guard. So if that's an issue for you, keep that in mind. Now, I have seen some aftermarket leather sheaths that I find intriguing. I may look into getting one of those just to see if it's any better. But for now, it's functional, has a lot of utility, so I'm not hating it, but I just kind of feel like it's a little big and chunky and a little bit sloppy. Sturdy, probably. Again, I haven't put the knife to a lot of tests yet. Speaking of, you saw the paper cut, so yeah, it's actually almost shaving sharp out of the box. It is 1095 Crovan, which is, the favorite steel for Ka-Bars. has a good reputation, not necessarily for being a power chopper like larger kukris, but what I intend to do is one of Mike's semi-scientific experiments. What am I proposing? Now, I really haven't put this knife to any real use yet. So what happens next is, well, it's going to be new for both of us. What I propose doing is a series of general use tests. Nothing abusive, but what I would actually consider within its, well, functional application range, just to kind of get a sense of how it's going to perform and hold up. And I'm going to compare it against what I would consider two contenders of comparable size and design. What are the contenders? First, a Nepal-made tourist, we'll call it that, kukri. Now, this is a 9-inch police model, so it's about half an inch longer, but I didn't necessarily want to go for a smaller one than this. And I may review this knife later, but this would be in that tourist class where you got something that's really overbuilt, slab-sided, doesn't really have that tapered apple-seated construction. So, heavier. How much so? Well, the spine on this one is 3/8, so 3 times thicker pretty much than the Ka-Bar is. But the weight is only 16 ounces, so it's only 3 ounces heavier, and overall about the same length and shape. And you can kind of compare them, and yeah, they're comparable in those dimensions. And I'm going to compare how those two knives then function against a similar straight-bladed knife. And I didn't necessarily have one in my personal collection that size, so I had to re-borrow my daughter's Ka-Bar Becker BK9. Now, this is a 9-inch blade, so again, just half an inch longer than the Ka-Bar Combat Kukri, but the same length as the Nepal Kukri that we're going to compare it against. Spine thickness is 3/16, so a little bit thicker than this one. Weight, 16 ounces, so 3 ounces heavier than this one, but actually the same weight as this one. So again, what I'm going to do is a couple of what I consider not terribly abusive tests and do these 3 knives side by side so you can see, hopefully, comparisons of how they perform in each one of the tasks I'm going to put them to. So what's up first? I am an idiot. I am sitting here cutting up cardboard so I can use it for, well, the tests I have planned. And think about it for a second, because I certainly didn't. Let's cut up some cardboard, because that's basically one of the, well, most common uses I put good sharp knives to. Opening boxes, rendering boxes, cutting them up so they'll go in recycling, or cutting them up to make targets out of them and then they go in recycling. Now, I already kind of wasted part of my opportunity, but let's try to play a little catch up here. A couple of cuts I make commonly are along folds. Okay? Now, I did make a couple of cuts with this knife that went butter smooth with the grain of the cardboard. So basically like this, through the cardboard. Yeah, that was a really nice, effortless slice. Okay, it's a little rough on the end there. But let me repeat it with this now. This is a much thicker knife. It's much more of a hatchet-like edge, but let me see. Again, I haven't actually tried this, so I wasn't thinking. Oh yeah, there's a lot more resistance. It's kind of like doing it with a hatchet. And actually, I can see some flake there. Let's go ahead and try to finish that with the Becker. Oh yeah, see, here we are back to, well, mostly butter. Mostly butter. As I say that, it snags a little bit. But I think what I'm seeing is a benefit of having that curvature, that belly. I find it hard to run my fingers even along the edge of this knife, which I do with a lot of my blades. I'm kind of dangerous that way with my blades. Let's do the same kind of cut with the grain, or against the grain. Cross it. It has a little more resistance this way, but until it kind of folded on itself. That was a heck of a cut. One more time with the chunky monster. Yeah, it's just not. Kind of push it up against something here. Oh yeah. Okay. I wouldn't want to do that job with that knife. Really wouldn't. This knife, nah. But if I was to declare a winner here just in straight up box cutting, definitely this one. Okay, now for reals, what's next?
Alright, tip/test. Just the first, well, inch or less. Alright. Let's try the beefy kukri. And now the BK9. Very similar results. Alright, let's go for some bigger hacks. This is pretty heavy duty triple ply cardboard, and I'm going diagonally against the grain first with the Ka-Bar. That wasn't too bad. Let's try it with the kukri from Nepal. Now hit it harder. And finally the BK9. Not quite as good. Alright, a couple of hacks straight across the grain, first with the Ka-Bar. And then with the Nepal. Alright, some remnants of that dresser I broke down. This is, it's only 1/2 inch press board with a laminate coating, but I figure if I'm doing the same board with all 3 knives, just want to give it a couple of cuts straight and at a couple of angles to give you a sense of how much it would penetrate this from the side. Again, it's just a side-by-side comparison. So if I do the Ka-Bar first, couple more. All right. Oh, let's do the Nepal kukri. All right. Now let's try the BK9. Okay, the BK9 feels a little bit more machete-like, if that makes any sense, whereas the 2 kukris feel a little bit more hatchet-like. I got the camera set up. Let me see how long it takes the Ka-Bar to cut all the way through the board. Try it with the Nepal kukri. I made a notch to give it that head start that the Ka-Bar had. See how many whacks it takes to get all the way through. Definitely meeting some resistance because it is fatter. And the grip is definitely slicker in my hand, but it's got more mass to it. Can I feather something? I don't know what kind of wood this is, but I mean, yeah, I could certainly do it with the Ka-Bar. This is some really hard dry wood. And it's doing its thing. All right. Not bad. Do it further up the blade. Oh yeah, so you get in that belly. That's pretty nice. How does that compare to the big beefy monster? Yeah, it can do it. I mean, down here in the curve, it's not bad, but you get up here, it's a little bit more awkward just because I'm having to move more blade, but yeah, you see the difference between those. Kind of get a sense of how they function. And so the Ka-Bar with the rubber grip, that's a lot more positive. Let's compare that really quick to the BK9. Oh. Okay, BK9 wins this one. That's pretty effortless. What else can we try? Vertical striking. Here's the Ka-Bar. Into the end of it. Here's the Kukri from Nepal. I hit that on the same spot. Let me hit it next to it. Yeah, that is definitely a hatchet. You can see that wood split about halfway down. And here's a BK9. I think at this point the wood's just pretty compromised. Let's try it from the other side. That just slipped right in. Oh boy. Kindling.
All right, I'm not sure which of that series of unfortunate events I just filmed or tried to film. It got cold out there pretty quick. It's just like 37 degrees outside. Winters come pretty quick, so I didn't spend a whole lot of time at this. Probably didn't do a very good job, but hopefully enough just to give a side-by-side comparison of the three knives. So what did I do? I cut into, slashed at some heavy-duty 3-ply cardboard, and all the knives did about the same. Though the Nepal-made Kukri certainly hit stuff harder and wasn't as positive in my grip because, you know, it's a hardwood grip versus a rubber grip. I also then chopped up some pressboard, and they all did pretty similar, but you'll see the results. There were definitely some differences in there. And then I took it to tried to do a little feathering or you know, peeling against a dry piece of wood to see if I can get some feathers off of it, and you can certainly see how the knives did in that test. And then I tried batoning, and that grossly failed because I really didn't have a good piece of wood to baton with and a surface to baton against, and yeah, they didn't really bite into the wood at all. However, then doing some chops into some firewood longitudinally, results were surprising. The Ka-Bar Kukri didn't do as well as I thought it was going to do compared to the other two knives, so that was kind of disappointing. But how did they hold up? Well, these matte finishes do get scuffed, so in that sense, both of the Ka-Bars, the Becker and the Kukri, are kind of mucked up. Whereas the rather axe-like tourist Kukri, some barely noticeable smears. So let's call this a test. Let me try to clean them up really quick, and we'll see how they look. That was disturbing. Well, part of it was disturbing. Some of it was just plain old expected, and actually better than anticipated. So after a little bit of CLP on some fine steel wool to get the gunk off this matte surface, I always have trouble getting the gunk off matte surfaces. There's a little scuffing. Not bad at all. You know, chopping wood and pressboard and stuff like that. No edge damage whatsoever. Same for the BK9. Couple scuffs, cosmetically speaking, but it's a working knife, so it gives it some character. But this is where that disturbing part comes in. The Nepal-made Kukri, spring steel, right? Now, this is the first time I've taken this one out and used it for anything. And you saw me, I chopped on some pressboard, and I chopped on some firewood a little bit. I don't consider any of that abusive considering the design of this knife, but the gunk came off of it easily, and there is zero edge damage except for, let me see if you can see it, right there, right there. Flip it over. See if I can get it on camera. Oh yeah, right there. Oh, hang on, right there. You see it? That's a crack. Now these are differentially hardened, supposedly. So the edge should be hardened to 5860, while the rest of it should be softer and more resilient. And the crack stops perfectly at the crest of the bevel. It doesn't go any further than that. Do I think it's a fatal flaw? I'm not sure, but the fact that after one, well, brief use, and yeah, the weather was cold, but it shouldn't make that much difference. I wasn't out there very long. Yeah, I don't feel like it should have cracked that easily right in the belly. Basically the mono-uchi of the blade. So this is going to make me rethink some things. Anyway, I hope these were useful tests, and definitely let me know if they were, and I will try to do similar comparisons across other knives, but on that kind of unhappy note regarding the Nepal-made Kukri, thanks for watching, following, subscribing, and I hope to see you back for more something. Learning from my mistakes, how about we try opening a box? Alright, now, this is very effective, but a little silly. However, there's enough belly on this blade, or breadth, whatever you want to call it. I could just grab it like that. And do something like that. Ah, very nicely done. Ooh. What's in the box? We'll talk about that later.